and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. So, Ralph, we have new episodes that come up every Tuesday. So now, every Tuesday, we will do a Wednesday Night Wars preview with AEW Dynamite and NXT on the USA Network. So we'll start tonight with AEW Dynamite because they are going to be in Philadelphia, one of the most passionate fan bases in wrestling. And honestly, I think they are putting on a pay-per-view quality card.
Mm-hmm.
You have Jericho versus Darby for the AEW Championship. You have Riho versus Britt Baker for the Women's Championship. Hangman Page and Omega versus Pac and John Moxley in a tag team match. And we have the final first-round matchups for the Tag Team Championship Tournament, where SCU will be facing the Best Friends, and Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy will be facing the Lucha Brothers.
Right.
I mean, if this was All Out or Double or Nothing or a pay-per-view, I'm totally buying that, but we're getting it for free.
Yep.
Something that WCW used to do a lot was give away these big pay-per-view matches on Monday Nitro for the ratings. Are you worried that they're going to be doing this for, free and that could affect pay-per-view buys?
Yeah. Not necessarily, I think, right now, because they're a little limited as far as the roster is concerned because they're still a newer company. So I think that they kind of have to do this in order to be competitive and try to get people to tune in and week out. And for those that are tuning into the product, they're doing a really good job of introducing these new characters and these new teams to the world, essentially.
Right.
You have the match with Jericho and Darby Allin, which probably will showcase Darby Allin in a really positive fashion. And then you look back to last week, the Young Bucks putting over Private Party, obviously that was huge for them. So
very huge.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think they're going to continue to create fresh characters and keep storylines fresh. So yeah, I'm not totally concerned.
Now, well, you brought up Jericho versus Darby Allin. Now, it's already been announced that Jericho and Cody are going to be facing off for the AEW Championship.
Yep.
I mean, card subject to change is always the thing that could protect it if, Darby is able to pull out the upset and win the AEW Championship. And we've also had this match before with Cody and Darby Allin, which went to the time limit draw. So I don't see Jericho dropping the title to Darby. I think it's going to be a very good showcase for Darby, just like we saw with Cody, a very good showcase where he doesn't necessarily win. But I think it's very interesting that Darby is in this position because now you have a story being told where Jericho can end up beating the guy that Cody couldn't finish off.
Right.
So that should give him the upper hand for their match at Full Gear. But you know what? I've been very impressed with what I've seen so far with Darby Allin.
Yeah, and I really like the way they're building show after show, week after week in terms of storylines and progressing the storylines and telling the story. So like you said, we know obviously Darby Allin had his match with Cody. He took him the distance and there was no winner. It was a draw. Since then, Darby Allin has gone on to have a couple wins here and there. He won the number one contendership match with Jimmy Havoc, but they've always followed that linear path as far as the storyline is concerned. And now he's going up against Jericho, where you have it in a position where, like you said, Jericho can beat the guy that Cody couldn't necessarily beat, or you have Darby Allin win, which it might be a small percentage win for him, but if he wins, now Cody gets to rematch the guy that he couldn't put away the first time. So there's a lot of intrigue with this match. It should definitely be a good match, and it's something that the fans are going to be into. Again, as far as building storylines and keeping their fans engaged, they're paying attention to the small details that make these matches seem much more important.
And what's also great about this match is it's going to be a Philadelphia street fight.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be weapons and bloodshed and, stunts that Darby Allin does.
We'll probably get an ECW chant.
Definitely, at least an AEW chant, an ECW chant. Maybe they blend together and it becomes like AEC dub all together. I don't know, but I think that's going to be a fun match. Will it be a 5-star, Meltzer giving it 7.25 stars? Probably not, but it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
I just hope we don't see the coffin drop on the apron spot.
Yeah.
Or something similar to that. But knowing Darby Allin, he's going to make it very dangerous for him. All right, let's move on to the women's championship match. We have Riho and Dr. Britt Baker. I don't know. I would think it's too early to have a title change here. But I think the story at least in the women's division that's being told right now, is between Britt Baker and B. Priestley.
Right.
So the question is, do they put the title on Baker and then B. Priestley attacks her after the match, or does B. Priestley attack her and cost her the match, and we have our first disqualification in AEW?
Well, I mean, you could also always go with the more or less cheap finish where B. Priestley comes out, distracts Britt Baker, and then she gets like schoolgirled or rolled up or something and with a 3 count. I think that's the most logical finish to this match. I do think B. Priestley's going to get involved. I don't think they're going to take the title right off Riho that quickly. But I guess you never know with professional wrestling.
True.
Look at what just happened with Bayley and Charlotte.
Right.
You know,
now I understand wins and losses matter, and Riho is 5-1, and her only loss was a tag team match with Britt Baker. And Britt Baker, I believe she's only lost 1 match, which was that same tag team match. So I just don't, if Riho retains, where does it go from here for her? That's the question.
Yeah, good point.
You know, there's only so long you could go with she's 98 pounds, but has been wrestling. She's 9, and you never know what's going to happen with Riho. Like, that story can only be told so long before it's like, all right, we got it. She's 98 pounds. She's been wrestling since she's 9.
Right.
Could she have a storyline, please? You know?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see. Maybe Awesome Kong comes out and starts something with Riho. I don't know.
We haven't seen her yet, so.
Haven't seen her yet. Well, let's move on to the tag team match. It is Hangman Page and Kenny Omega versus Pac and Jon Moxley. And one thing that I love when this happens in professional wrestling is when we have 2 storylines and they get blended together. Obviously, Hangman and Pac have their story. Moxley and Omega have their story, and we're getting that in a tag team match. And some people might be like, oh, you're giving the match away before Full Gear. Not necessarily. You're getting a hint of it.
Right.
But it's not like they're going to be facing off each other every week before the show. So I'm okay with this. I think this could be the match of the night.
Certainly could be in the match of the night. I mean, there's a lot of combustible elements in this and a lot of storylines, like you said, coming together. I definitely think it's going to be a hard-hitting, fast-paced match, especially because Moxley, since he's gotten out of WWE, has turned it up, all the way up to 100. He brings it every match. Pac is who Pac is. He's one of the high flyers, but also hard hitting. And Omega, you know what you get with him, and Hangman's been good too. So definitely a match I'm looking forward to. I don't know who I'm leaning towards as far as winning this. Probably the heels, meaning Pac and Moxley, if you want to consider Moxley a heel.
Right.
Just because I feel like they've really been playing into the whole Omega not being able to get wins and trying to rebuild him and stuff like that. And I think they're going to kind of continue that storyline.
And also the story that with Pac's win-loss record since he left WWE, where he's only lost once in any promotion. I think that's going to really play a role here. So, I mean, I think they're going to be setting up where Pac is going to be Pac is going to be the next number 1 contender after Full Gear, because they're going to have to start building these number 1 contenders. It can't just be, we're just going to throw Cody Rhodes in there.
Right.
Got to start building them up. And Pac, I think right now is the guy to be built. So let's finish it off for AEW Dynamite with the tag team tournament matchups. SCU versus the Best Friends, Lucha Brothers versus the Jurassic Express of Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. I guess the top seeds in this are the Best Friends and the Lucha Brothers. So the question is, which one of those teams are more likely to be upsetted by their opponents? Well,
it's interesting because last week we obviously saw the Young Bucks get bounced out in the first round by Private Party. And I think that's fine because the Young Bucks, their name is the draw. They don't need to win this tournament to essentially be over.
Correct.
The other thing we saw, I think it was the first episode of Dynamite, was the tease between the Lucha Brothers and SCU.
Right.
So that would lead you to believe those 2 teams are going to win. I think SCU is going to win in advance, but I actually think Jurassic Express is going to win. And the reason I think that they're going to win is, again, when you look at what the Young Bucks did for Private Party, putting over the Young Tag Team, I think they can make a really big statement by putting over the Jurassic Express. They're obviously very over. The fans are into them. Lucha Brothers don't need the win. Yes, they are one of the more well-known tag teams, and that's exactly the reason why they don't need to advance or win the championship titles at the end of this tournament. Let the Jurassic Express win. Let them get a little more credibility by beating a very good team. And let them ride that wave, because right now they have a lot of momentum. People are into them. Stick with it.
Now, for the same reason you're saying Jurassic Express, you could make the case for the Best Friends too, because SCU obviously don't need the win because of who they are. And they've actually had some pretty interesting wins. You would think that they were going to drop matches or lose matches, and they ended up winning them. So I don't see them. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they advance, but I also think that they don't necessarily need the win either. Plus, the winner of that match faces the Dark Order, so you would think they would want to set up the Best Friends Dark Order rematch and let the Best Friends take over that match, beat the Dark Order, and then we get the finals with the Best Friends. As far as Lucha Brothers versus Jurassic Express, if the Jurassic Express do not win this tournament, I feel like there's going to be a riot. They are so freaking over. They have to pull the trigger on this tag team. Plus, you're going to get crossover media between Luchasaurus being a former contestant on Big Brother. You have Jungle Boy, who's the son of Luke Perry. Why not? Why not?
No, I definitely agree. And to your point with SCU, you know, they don't necessarily have to win either. AEW can make a really big statement with all of these matches where the more established tag teams or the guys that are already over or more notable have been around for a while. Obviously, SCU, the Lucha Brothers, and the Young Bucks. Having them not advance makes a statement like, look, we told you guys we're going to invest in the young guys. We're going to invest in new talent, give you something fresh, give you something different. We're not just going to book ourselves at the top because, you know, we're executives or we're more well-known or whatever. So I think they could certainly do that. Make a big statement.
Now, I think it's going to be very fun. It'd be interesting to see what matches go in what order, but either way, I think this is going to be a very good show.
Right.
And the ratings should reflect that. And NXT, you know, we'll move on to their card. They only have 3 matches announced. That is Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic, Pete Dunne versus Damien Priest, and Tommaso Ciampa versus Angel Garza. To me, the Priest-Dunne match, I think they needed to build a little bit more to let that maybe end up being a takeover match. And we've seen Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic a few times already. We know how good this match could be. And then Tommaso Ciampa, I think this is just, you know, his first match back after being injured. Let him look good. So I think these matches will be good, but going up against AEW Dynamite, that card, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and especially, and this is the point I keep making. It really feels like it's unfortunate that, you know, Raw and SmackDown, the ratings and everything were so bad for a while that they had to essentially pull guys up from NXT before I think they really wanted to. Guys like Aleister Black. Trying to think back to whoever. Yeah, Ricochet.
Heavy Machinery.
Lacey
Evans.
Yeah, so, I mean, Heavy Machinery wasn't necessarily one of their A teams, but
they're super over, I would think, right now.
War Raiders, when they were the War Raiders, obviously. So, you know, right now they're kind of functioning with a lot of B to B plus players and guys that aren't necessarily as established. Like Damien Priest, obviously anybody who follows wrestling knows that, or a hardcore wrestling fan is going to know that, you know, he's an established guy, but to the NXT fans who don't follow other promotions, they aren't really going to know who he is, and they haven't taken the time to establish him. Pete Dunne, he's an established guy. Tommaso Ciampa, obviously, he's an A-plus player. He's one of their big names.
Right.
And then you look at Keith Lee and Dijakovic. I always pronounce his fucking name wrong, but either way, I think I did okay. Whatever. Again, 2 guys that are really good and probably going to become really over at some point, but they just haven't had the time to resonate with the casual fan, you know? So I think that works against them. So when you look at the card, it looks okay on paper, but it's not a lot of names that you're like, wow, that's great when you in comparison to like AEW.
Now, like I mentioned before, like AEW is putting on what could be a pay-per-view card, and NXT is just putting on a basic TV card where, you know, it's a safe match, like with Garza and Ciampa, Pete Dunne and Damien Priest. I would think they would have, I think Priest would go over to make him look more dominant over a guy that, you know, was the longest reigning United Kingdom champion and longest reigning champion in the modern era for any title. And then we have the rematch of Keith Lee and Dijakovic, which has been talked about for a while. Like I said, throwing on these pay-per-view type cards could, in the long run, hurt against them because it's like, why pay the pay-per-view when I could get these matches for free? And NXT's like, you know what? People are just going to watch the takeovers.
Yeah.
So if we can get from point A to point B and at least make it somewhat logical, they're going to watch the takeovers.
Yeah, and again, you never know. That can be done intentionally where they're saying, look, we know what AEW is doing, but they're stacking their cards for TV, and eventually they only have so much talent right now, and there's only going to be so many free agents. So maybe they're saying to themselves, we're going to ride this out. We'll let them go through all the matches. Eventually, they're going to run out of fresh matchups and stuff like that. And, you know, we'll ride it out, and eventually we'll work towards getting to the point where maybe you do get, like, Ciampa versus Gargano on TV or something like that. Because, like you said, if you look back at wrestling history, one of the biggest things that people complained about, or one of the reasons why WCW wasn't necessarily successful in the long term, was because they were giving away huge matches on TV, like Hogan and Goldberg on Nitro. That's like a main event caliber match at like a Starrcade or WrestleMania, especially when they were both at the pinnacle of their careers, as far as Hogan being super over as a heel, and Goldberg being super over as the guy with this unbeatable streak. So, you know, there are people within WWE that have seen the rise and fall of other companies, and maybe they're looking at that and saying, you know, let them do their thing. They're going to burn out. They're going to go through all their matches. There won't be many matchups left at the end of the year. We're just going to ride this out. I mean, I'm just speaking out loud, but it's possible. Right.
No, I totally agree. So let us know in the comments below and vote on the eye above my head. Which card do you like better, AEW Dynamite or NXT on the USA Network? Don't forget to like this video, share it all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. And for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. For Rob Valenti, my name's Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.